Have you ever had to babysit a child and no matter what, they just will not stop crying? Well, did you know that this is actually how a child is trying to communicate with you? Most of us are going to have kids at some point in our lives, or we have younger siblings we have to take care of. So it's very important to understand how a child communicates in order to know how to take care of them. According to a study by the International Journal of Speech Language Pathology in June 2018, it explains that parents who actually read to their children help develop their communication skills as well as help create a better bond with their children. I would like to inform you about how a child communicates from birth to around 5 years old. When I'm finished, you should be able to describe their communication development. Through research, I've been able to get a better understanding of how a child communicates, as well as when I used to babysit, I've been able to get a hands-on experience with children as well. When I explain this process, I will be describing how a child communicates from birth to 1 year old, their communication development from 2 to 3, and then finally from ages 4 to 5. First, I will identify the communication style of a baby and list how they communicate and develop. So babies communicate through movement, sound, and facial expressions. According to Military One Source in April of 2020, it explains that parents need to figure out what each sound means. It is the best way to learn and understand your baby. It also explains that from birth to around 1 year old, the communication will only be around one-sided. So it's very important for the parents to understand and learn from their baby to know exactly what they need. They need to figure out what each sound means, but it also explains that it gets better with over time. When you create a better bond with your baby, then you will finally learn what each sound means. It also says that repeating words back to their child will help encourage them to speak and develop listening skills. By age 1, they are able to respond to yes or no questions, and they should be able to say a couple words, but this is a time where they learn which communication style is best for them. So whenever a child cries and the parents come running towards them, then the baby learns that they should only cry because then that's when they get their attention. So it's very important to nurture them, but also teach them how to communicate through words because then they won't develop their brains and they won't learn how to communicate with only their words. They will only just learn how to cry then. Earlier, I referenced the International Journal of Speech, Language, and Pathology, and in the same study, it also says to help strengthen their child's language and development is through storybook reading. It explains by doing this, they get attentions from each parent individually, so it helps create a bond with the mom and the dad, while also helps develop their vocabulary. It also explains that the parents need to make eye contact, because when they create eye contact, it shows that they respect their child and they're giving them exactly what they want. When they provide with books, it creates a structure for language learning. And when you show them the storytime books, usually ones with pictures, it helps them connect the pictures with the vocabulary. So when you show them a picture of a dog and you keep telling them, this is a dog, this is a dog, sooner or later they will learn to connect that picture with the vocabulary. So during a child's birth to 1 year old, their communication is all about understanding them, since it is all one-sided. But by 1 year old, they recommend by doing storybook exercises because it helps them learn how to respond and form words. When it comes to around 2 to 3 years old, they start to finally develop a vocabulary. So first at 2 years old, they develop a vocabulary, but they cannot form sentence properly yet. From the article 0to3.org from February 2016, they say a 28-month-year-old should be able to understand some things but cannot speak properly. So it's being very patient and understanding that they may need to repeat their sentence a couple times for you to understand. So when a kid points to a dog, they might say like dog. They might say it like super weird and you might not understand them first, but you have to keep letting them just say it over and over again until you understand, and then repeat that word back to them. Like tell them that's a dog so that they can learn how to actually say the words, and it helps create their vocabulary better. And through time, then they'll be able to develop a language structure. It says that you have to talk and listen to them. You have to help them build a language skills by having them list foods and things around them. So show them what words mean and then repeat them back to them so they can get a better understanding and connect the two items together. You have to teach them also nonverbal communication, but making sure to respect and recognize their feelings. Because if you're just being mean to their child and telling them like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't even say this, then it doesn't encourage them to continue learning. You cannot put them down. You have to be nurturing and understand that it might take them a little while to understand what each thing means. But by age 3, they can actually have a casual conversation. It is important to let them know that when they speak, they are being listened to. If they speak and the parent only ignores them, then it teaches them that they're allowed to do that to others. So it doesn't help them grow and become a decent human being. It makes them become very stubborn, not listening, and they just become a bad kid. A study done by the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, it explains to officially communicate with a child around this age is to learn their name, use words they can understand, show genuine concern, ask follow-up questions so that they feel understood and respected. It also helps them develop their communication skills, because when you show them that I know your name, when you're spoken, you are being listened to, then it shows them that they also have to do that to other people. So by ages 2 to 3, they can speak, but it is still a little bit difficult for them to form words. But around 4 to 5 is when they actually have a language structure and they know how to properly form sentences. According to kidshealth.org, it says that a kid gains language skills and conversational abilities. They can follow more complex directions, make up stories, retell, and listen attentively to them. So around 4 years old, when they first reach kindergarten, that is when they understand these things, and their language skills are much, much better. They are finally able to form sentences. They have a very active imagination, so they can make up stories, retell stories that you tell them, and etc. Sentence structure is around 5 or more words, and their vocabulary is around 1,000 to 2,000 words, according to the kidshealth.org. From Early Childhood Education Journal, it explains that in school, these 4 to 5-year-olds learn how to enhance their vocabulary in the classrooms by read aloud and pictures. Like I mentioned earlier, that when you show a child a picture, they can make a better connection of this word means that picture. That's what it looks like. So in kindergarten, when they do these read alouds, it helps them to develop a more advanced vocabulary. Just like the baby, but this time they understand better. It's because it teaches them to develop an understanding of key vocabulary and important real-world concepts when they read these books. By asking them questions relating to the story, it also helps develop their minds, and the teacher helps them understand why things happen that way. At ages 4 to 5, it's very important for a parent to constantly ask the child questions and communicate through words so they can develop mentally. From my speech, you should have been able to get a better understanding of why that baby was crying in the beginning and why they were trying to communicate with you the only way that they know how. From birth, a child is only able to communicate through movement, facial expressions, and sounds. By age 1, they are able to say a couple words and are able to understand what their parents are trying to talk to them about. By ages 2 to 3, they are able to speak more clearly, but they do not understand language structure yet. But by ages 4 to 5, they have a more advanced vocabulary and are able to speak in proper sentences. From listening to my speech, you should be able to identify how a child could communicate from birth to 5 years of age. When having a child, learning how they communicate will not only help you develop a deeper connection with them, but will also help them understand how to communicate to everyone efficiently. Spending time with your child is going to be the most effective way to understand which communication method is more effective for them.